Thank you for joining us for today's session. I'm your host, Debbie Mathias with the Build Initiative. We'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement from Giovanna Archuleta, Assistant Secretary for the New Mexico Early Childhood Education and Care Department.
I would like to open up this meeting acknowledging our Mother Earth and the land she nurtures us with, the land where our children grow, and the land that provides the food to feed them. When we talk about these resources, we must also acknowledge the lands of our tribal people and the deep spiritual and long-standing relationship of all tribal nations. Today I come from you from Nambe-Awinga, the land of my ancestors who cared for it and fought for it so that I may one day live and raise my own children on it. A relationship that predates colonial contact by thousands of years. Our ancestors still speak to us and guide us through our songs, ceremonies, and writings. Through removal, trail of tears, long walks, assimilation, and the idea that by removing children would kill a culture. Our ancestors did not give up. Our tribal people are some of the most resilient people in our country, continuing to raise children to be resilient, who are nurtured through language and culture, the language and culture that cannot be removed. We must also acknowledge all other spirits who were forcefully displaced from their homelands and trafficked for labor and production on sacred native land. All of us collectively continue to experience the adversity that caused our ancestors and spirits who continue to hurt from actions done to them. Take a moment to pray these people find the healing and peace to raise their children in a world that has so many opportunities, but most importantly, create coexistence free of violence. Tribal people are praying people. This is where we are all tied. Our grandmothers and mothers continue to pray over us. And as tribal people pray, they pray for people in the north, in the east, in the south, and the west. They pray for infants, children, adults, and elders, and our non-human relations, each with knowledge to share with us. As this conference begins, I hope that each of you are balanced in all directions and take a moment to appreciate what Mother Earth has given to us and how she continues to nurture us in many ways. I invite and encourage you to learn who are the original stewards of the land you live and work on and support those nations and children of those lands. Thank you.
The Build team is excited to present this 20 webinars in 20 days for QRIS 2020 as we explore ideas, possibilities, and learn together about how we might recreate better, more equitable systems with children, families, and early childhood professionals at the center of our efforts. We're grateful to the many individuals who took time to prepare sessions, generate content, and ideas to share. We believe the sessions will inspire you to build on these ideas, continue conversations, and innovate back in your own communities and states. We've learned a great deal as we prepared for the virtual events. One of our lessons is that a virtual event draws a much broader audience than an in-person conference. The Build QRIS conference was designed for early childhood system leaders at the national, state, territory, tribal, nation, and community levels. Well, as registration rolled in for the virtual event, we discovered many direct service providers, from teachers to center directors and home-based providers signing up for the sessions. We welcome you to our learning community and look forward to hearing your perspectives. We encourage you to share your comments, ideas, and questions in the chat box. As you know, we had to pivot from our in-person conference to a virtual conference. We would like to say a sincere thank you to our sponsors who made that switch possible. Their support is essential to this event. Well, we've all become familiar with the Zoom platform over the past few months as we've used it to connect with friends, family, community, and colleagues. We want to point out a few features that may be new to you. First, when the PowerPoint isn't showing, you can choose your view in the upper right-hand corner. Click on a speaker view to see the active speaker, or click on Gallery View to see everyone who has their cameras on. Next, we encourage you to provide feedback throughout the session by clicking the participants to open the participant list, and then clicking on the icons along the bottom to respond to questions or give us a thumbs up. Presenters might use this feature to do some quick polling, so be ready. Most importantly, chat with us. We encourage you to be active participants in the chat box. Please share your experiences and questions. Now I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Drake to introduce our presenters and launch the session.
Thanks, Deb. I am Jennifer Drake. I'm the Director of the Emergency Child Care and Technical Assistance Center at Child Care Wherever America. I've been with Child Care Wherever America for about 4 years. Prior to that, I worked for almost 20 years in Indiana's Child Care Resource and Referral System. I am delighted today to introduce you to our co-presenters, Louise Stoney and Monique Reynolds. I'll ask Louise to introduce herself first.
Hi, I'm Louise Stoney. I'm co-founder of Opportunities Exchange. As many of you know, I've been involved in this field for many years. I'm working primarily on childcare policy and finance. When we planned this webinar, my colleague Sharon Easterling was going to join me. Unfortunately, she's not able to be here today, but she will be here in spirit. I'm going to do her slides, but you'll hear me reference her a lot as she's a great resource for us.
Thanks, Louise. Monique, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon. I'm Monique Reynolds, Director of Business Support Services with Quality Care for Children. I'll tell you, being in this industry for 25 years, I've had the pleasure of owning and operating my own centers and working in the private and corporate sector. It's a delightful pleasure for me to have the opportunity to share with you benefits about business leadership training, and I'm going to share some amazing results that our organization has done to support and empower childcare business leaders within our industry. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Monique. I appreciate that enthusiasm. It makes me even more excited to move through this session today. So I mentioned that I'm with the Emergency Child Care and Technical Assistance Center at Child Care Wherever America. Child Care Wherever America stood up this new center, we call it ECTAC for short, in March as a vehicle for us to be able to respond quickly with training and technical assistance, quality, and emergency needs of our audiences. So ECTAC is really a way to frame and raise awareness of the work that Child Care Wherever America has already been doing. It's also a way to launch new work, including the work that we're doing with Opportunities Exchange on business automation and data. The primary audiences for ECTAC are the roughly 460 child care resource and referral agencies across the country. We strive to assist CCR&Rs and other system level leaders in responding to COVID-19. And we assist CCR&Rs in demonstrating their strengths as subject matter experts, direct service providers, and intermediaries in their communities. And to a lesser degree, this center also serves childcare providers and families through our hotline, chat, and email supports. And part of that work is always connecting providers and families back to their local CCR&Rs. So through this center, I have the just delight to be able to work with Louise, Sharon, and other colleagues at Opportunities Exchange. And over the course of the year, we'll be doing a lot of things together. We have a webinar series, a series of issue briefs, and so forth. And we'll be covering some of the topics you see here on this slide. So together, we'll be working to kind of raise awareness and provide training and technical assistance around childcare management systems, business training, shared services, some work around data interoperability, cost modeling, and staff family childcare networks. And you'll be able to find information about all of those things on Childcare Aware's website. You can see here childcareaware.org. So in today's webinar, this is what we'll be covering. We'll start off with why business leadership matters. We'll talk about what effective practice in business leadership look like. We'll connect that to the role of QRIS for supporting best practices. We'll talk quite a bit about childcare management systems and their essential role in business leadership, how important it is to link business training with childcare management systems, and then some resources on technology solutions. At the end of the webinar, we're going to have a fair amount of time for question and answers. I'll be tracking the chat for questions as they come up, but we will have some dedicated time, as I mentioned, at the end for Q&A. And at this point, I will turn it over to Louise.
So I am the co-founder of an organization called Opportunities Exchange. We are essentially a nonprofit consulting firm, and our goal is to transform the business of early care and education. And we do that through both business models and technical assistance, but also shaping public policy and finance, because we know that the childcare industry is nested in government sectors. Our work is guided by this formula. We believe that high quality early care and education requires both pedagogical leadership and business leadership. Both of those things are essential. Now I want to talk a little bit about what we mean by these terms, and I'm going to start with pedagogical leadership. Most people think pedagogical leadership is about teacher credentials, but that's a myth. There's a growing body of research that is underscoring that the key ingredient to effective teaching and learning is actually site-based, job-embedded pedagogical leadership. What does that mean? It means that time is the most important factor. Time for teachers off the floor, paid time, to think and plan, time to observe children, to assess children, and to reflect on what you're seeing with a skilled supervisor. It's about time, not just credentials. Now, most people think in the business leadership bucket that it's also about training. But again, that's a myth. So what you see in front of you is the iron triangle of finance. This is my mantra. Everything I know about finance is boiled into this one picture. And the bottom line is that in order to run an effective childcare program, you got to be full, you got to be collecting your fees in full, and you have to know what your cost per child is and to be able to gauge the gap. Now, what's happening right now in COVID-19 is that this iron triangle is broken, and programs are struggling with all three of these things. And the reality is training alone is not going to help them resolve that. Yes, they need funding, but they also need very skilled and targeted business coaching and support to help them actually manage the iron triangle. So we're going to go into a lot of depth in this session about what that looks like. The other thing I just want to also say is that when we talk about both pedagogical leadership and business leadership, and we talk about training, I want to just suggest that all of you think about this thing called the forgetting curve. And you might actually want to Google it, because it's research that will blow your mind. It certainly did me. Do you know that 90% of what somebody learns in a one and done training is lost, forgotten in a week if it's not practiced? So what we're trying to do is create structures inside centers where change and learning is practiced on a regular basis so that it's absorbed. And that really leads to the sort of our bigger theory of change, which is that, again, that both of these things are linked. So if you see sort of this progression on this slide, you use the iron triangle to generate more revenue for the program. You use automation, which underscores iron triangle, so that you're being strategic about how you spend your time and you're maximizing your time. More money allows you to increase teacher compensation, but it also gives the director more time to work with teachers in their classroom. As teachers improve their practice, then we get better child outcomes. So you see how these things are linked. Now I want to show you the punchline, because people often don't believe me. So I wanted to show you this. This is actually a picture of a childcare center that made a dramatic change in just 1 year. This is a childcare center that started participating with us, and in January of 2018, I just realized the date is covered up here on this slide, but the one on the far left here, that's 48%. When this center joined a Shared Services Alliance, we ran their personnel budget. And what we discovered was that 48% of their budget was going to classroom teachers in the classroom. 35% was admin, and 17% was non-classroom supports. Within 1 year, this center was able to boost the percentage of the budget spent on classrooms to 62%. They got admin down to 14% and non-classroom supports down to 17%. Dramatic change. Let's talk about what that really meant in terms of life. So first of all, let's talk about the change. What did they do? First of all, they launched an automated childcare management system. We're going to focus on that a lot in this presentation. Secondly, they joined a Shared Service Alliance, which allowed them to leverage business expertise. And thirdly, they made boosting teacher wages and job-embedded coaching a priority. They said, that's where we want our benefits to go. What was the results? They were able to improve teacher compensation in terms of both health insurance, 401k, and a wage increase. And look at that next bullet. That director had 17 more hours a week to work with teachers in the classroom. That's the time we're talking about in terms of pedagogical leadership. Now let's talk about this from the perspective of a family child care provider. We all know that family child care providers have been diminishing. At Opportunities Exchange, we believe that a key reason for that is they're just not making a decent living. So what you see in this slide is the difference between a family child care home that had business leadership and one that was a standalone. And if you go to the very bottom of the slide, that's what I really want you to look at, the bottom line. Look at that. They literally doubled their net revenue because they worked with a support agency that helped them with business leadership. And they were able to double their revenue because they managed the iron triangle. They priced their services. They were able to adjust their pricing because they weren't charging as much as they could. Look at their vacancy rate went way down. Keeping family childcare programs full is not easy. It sounds like it would be, it's not. And then collections, bad debt. So you see what a difference that makes in terms of the bottom line for the family childcare home. So here's the challenge. The challenge is that this is what our field looks like. Yes, here's our formula for success up at the top. Here are all the things you need to do in both pedagogical and business leadership to be successful. But here's the sad story. In most cases, most of our centers are very small. All of that falls on the shoulder of one overburdened, overwhelmed childcare center director working alone. Or if they're a family childcare provider, we can add another box over here, which is teacher. So not just the leader, the business leader, the pedagogical leader, they're also the classroom teacher. The bottom line is this is an overwhelming job, and our expectations, quite frankly, are often unrealistic. So at Opportunities Exchange, this is what we believe needs to happen. These are our core values. We believe that every director deserves an administrative team. We believe that every teacher deserves pedagogical leadership. That means someone who has the time to help them think, plan. It means they have time paid off the floor to think and plan. And we believe that every child deserves a reflective teacher. So I think a key question for quality rating systems is, how can QRIS make this possible? We hope you leave this session with some ideas about how that can happen. So at the core of all of this, we believe, is automation. It's extremely important for us to be able to maximize time and to be able to collect data and manage money in ways that are efficient. There are off-the-shelf products called child care management systems. There's lots of brand names: ProCare, SmartCare, EasyCare. They all have pros and cons, but they all pretty much work. There are also some interesting products like Alliance Core, supported by Early Learning Ventures in Colorado, that actually links some back office supports with that. So that's another great option. In home-based childcare, for family childcare, there are fewer tools for family childcare. Easy Care is one that's linked to Minute Menu. Also, there are a number of growing companies like Wonder School and WeCare that have really interesting software that's linked to them that literally allows family childcare providers to run their businesses off a phone. So there are lots of options out there. These products are off the shelf. They can be purchased for relatively small amounts of money by providers, by hubs on behalf of providers, by cost sharing. And the bottom line is they're crucial. We think of them as the roads and bridges, the infrastructure of shared services and of the field in the future. And all of these things, they save time, they save money, they increase revenue, and they are really crucial to supporting skilled fiscal management. So what we're trying to do here, and I want to underscore this word leadership, because I think what happens is that we get confused and we mix leadership with administration. So administration is pushing paper. So if you look under the from column, right, we want to go from manual record keeping that takes time and it's pushing paper to actual integrated data systems that automatically track enrollment, that automatically track a lot of the data that has to be collected by virtue of people simply doing their jobs, and then can seamlessly transfer data into reporting systems. This is not a dream. This is entirely possible given new technology. We also want to shift from passive attendance to business training, which, as I said before, is not effective in learning, to active application of business principles. Again, so what you're going to hear in a little bit is Monique is going to describe a project where they literally purchase software, a network of a group of software licenses for a group of childcare centers. They make those available to the centers for free for a year, along with a coach who helps them get all their data loaded, start using this system. So they're learning in real time business principles. They're running reports and looking at their own data to understand business principles. So it's actually in many ways parallel to what we've all learned to do on the pedagogical side with coaches who work inside classrooms side by side with teachers. This is the same thing. Coaches working side by side with fiscal managers so that they're learning with their own data in real time. This also allows us to shift as we begin to build automated systems. Then you can actually, when you have an automated system and you're uploading data, you can share very high level, very skilled fiscal people to look at your data, help you track trends, help you look across multiple places. You know, are you fitting into industry norms? How do you better understand what's going on? And how do you generate timely reports and analyze business metrics? So there's a level of depth that you can get when you start to move in this direction. Now, I just want to say, Sharon Easterling, who's on our team, who would have been on this call, she is our team expert on childcare management systems. Sharon makes it her business to stay on top of all the different products that are out there by the vendors. We have on our website, as well as in our personal files, a ton of resources that help you understand what are the pros and cons of different software systems, how do you analyze them, how do you think about which of the features of different ones. There's also step-by-step guidance on how you think about launching a business coaching process hand in hand with CCMS. So there are many, many resources that are out there to help you. And Sharon would definitely be your go-to person in terms of someone who can help you do this. I think from your perspective, thinking about what role you might play as a QRIS coach is first of all, become familiar with childcare management systems. Spend some time on the Opportunities Exchange website, or spend some time looking at, there's lots, each one of the software companies have tutorials you can watch so that you really understand what is a childcare management system and how does it help. Secondly, really becoming a trusted partner. And people will say to us, oh, childcare programs don't want to share their data. They don't try, they're afraid to show their numbers. We believe a lot of it is how you ask the questions and how you approach them. We would never say, do you want to share your data? We would say, how can I help you be a successful business? What do you need to know? Let me tell you tools that might be helpful to you. So it's a way that you begin to approach and ask questions. Data-driven, helping providers, and we just showing them what's possible, that when you have data, look at what it can tell you, look at how it can help you guide your decisions. Now more than ever is data important. Childcare programs are suffering, and the primary reason they're suffering is they're not fully enrolled. They're having a really hard time getting their arms around what their current costs are, what the gap is between their cost and the revenues they can bring in. Data is hugely, hugely important, and helping them to not only generate data, but to understand it is important. It's also extremely important for us to be process skilled. And by that, we mean kind but firm. Oftentimes, programs will say to us, childcare providers don't want to do this. They're not comfortable with it. Well, when we first introduced QRIS, when we first introduced ERS in class, were providers comfortable with it? Not exactly. We learned to help them. We were kind but firm. We understand this is hard. Let's talk about how we can help you, but it doesn't mean we're not going to do it. So it's that kind of leadership is really crucial. It's extremely important that we start getting our arms around finances, and then we start really embracing automation. And then lastly, there's a huge opportunity to focus on equity here. Automation is a tool that can empower small owners of small businesses, many of whom are Black and brown individuals who absolutely need this tool to succeed, and we can help bring this tool to them. So it's a really important and empowering tool to move forward. Business leadership also opens up new opportunities for public and private funders. So again, this is something that we have quite a few issue briefs and resources on the Opportunities Exchange website, so feel free to look to us. But we feel that it's really important to link automation to business training. When we're making money available for business training, we need to be linking automation to it. When we're making money available for recovery, right now, as we're making dollars available for recovery, let's pair those dollars with business coaching and training so that we can help programs be financially viable over time. Scale is essential. As we begin to crunch numbers, as we look at unit costs, it's very clear that programs have to get bigger in order to be sustainable. One way they can get bigger is through shared services, by linking multiple small sites to a shared back office, and automation makes that possible. As I said to you before, off-the-shelf CCMS, there's lots of them. You don't have to build software, it's there. Here's what you do need to build or enable, you don't have to build them, are links to the data systems. And the way you do those links is something called an API, an application programming interface. And actually APIs are written by the vendors. So the vendors themselves write it and the state accepts it. So what the role there is really helping states to understand why APIs are important, encouraging vendors to write them, sort of playing that shepherding role of linking those two things together. Fourthly, we need to think about building the cost of automation into provider funding. So right now, most of these projects that are working on business leadership and training and automation are basically raising money to purchase the software and give it to providers. But ultimately, providers are going to have to pay for it themselves. So being transparent with the providers about the unit cost and working on building that in to funding sources and to rates is going to be important. Another point is thinking strategically about linking accountability and business outcomes, so that, again, iron triangle metrics, thinking about that as a reporting outcome for funders. Historically, and when I look at QRIS standards, I see things like, do you have a budget? Do you have a business plan? Those are inputs, guys. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I know lots of people who have a family budget, has no correlation to what's in their checkbook. The issue isn't, do you have a budget? It's, do you know what your costs are? Are you tracking them? Do you know what your bad debt is? Do you know your enrollment? Are you using your budget as a tool? So again, thinking strategically about metrics and accountability. And then finally, building capacity for real-time data. Many of you who have read the things that we've written recently out of Opportunities Exchange, we're just pushing relentlessly on real-time supply and demand data, because right now in COVID-19, it's essential. One of the cool things about automated systems, and particularly childcare management systems, is that with APIs, it's entirely possible to pull enrollment data right out of the automated systems through links in the back end, so that we can keep real-time data systems populated. What technology can do these days is quite astonishing. So we have this huge opportunity to harness the power of technology as we begin to reinvent this field and move into the next century. And so we highly encourage you to do that. So I've been actually talking about sort of big picture issues and what does this look like from a systems. And now I'm actually going to shift to Monique Reynolds, who has been running a project in Atlanta, Georgia, and she's going to give you a sense of what this looks like on the ground. So take it over, Monique.
Thank you, Louise. All right, so Louise has just basically drawn out this roadmap of how we implement this wonderful tool and bring everything together in the field. So at Quality Care for Children, what we did, we wanted to launch our ECE Business Leadership Training and Development Program. We work with 40 providers, 21 child care centers, and 13 family child care providers. The first thing that we immediately wanted to jump in is automation. And I can tell you from experience in working with these providers in the field, it will drastically save time and money. So we didn't have any hesitation from any of our programs that wanted to be involved, and we got busy. So with the automation, one of the biggest examples I can give you for payroll, it was taking business owners between 6 to 10 hours per pay period to get stuff done. Where when we sat down with them and put in the employees' information and everything into the automated system, it took less than 20 minutes. So it took 2 minutes to run the report, 5 to 10 minutes for that business owner to kind of review the payroll information, and voila, they had it. And they were amazed because now they could have that work life, that work balance, work life, instead of spending 50 to 60 hours at the child care center all day and not really getting anything done because you're wearing so many hats. They were finding using an automation system where they were getting so much stuff done in a small amount of time where they were working more efficiently. So I highly recommend whatever program you want to choose. As Louise has stated, there's so many different childcare programs out there. We chose to use ProCare simply because there were a lot of our providers that already had the modules, but they weren't implementing them correctly. So it was our job to kind of go in there and be their partner and help them along to the way to get everything in the system so that they could have a black and white picture of what was going on. The next thing about automation that I love is that you get to see data in real time. So we had providers that were offering discounts. Hey, I want to give a military discount, or my teacher needs a 50% employee discount. So they were offering all of these discounts along the way, to find out one provider, literally when we pulled the report of the credits that she was giving, it was $2,300 a week. And so she was having a hard time struggling with her cash flow simply because she was giving too much of a discount in her center. And the only way that she was able to see the difference was by looking at her data, understanding it, and saying, whoa, wait a minute, I need to back up and rethink that. And it's not for us as coaches to say, well, you can't offer discounts. But what we did was say, if you want to offer a discount, and maybe it's $5,000 a year, how about raise those funds, talk to community leaders, talk to organizations that can donate monies to you. So now you have the money set up to offer those discounts. So the important part of the automation system is for providers to see in black and white their business financial health. How are they really doing? And not necessarily relying on their accountants to provide that information, but for them to know if they're operating at a profit and a loss. For the business coaching, when we jumped in, we immediately took the ECE Iron Triangle model, which is awesome. And I highly recommend every child care facility using these metrics because it focuses on the three most important things every business owner should be aware of in child care. Are you fully enrolled? Are you collecting your fees? And do you know your revenue costs per child? And oftentimes, especially with our home child care providers, they did not want to raise their fees. And when we looked at it again in black and white, when we looked at the Iron Triangle model, when we sat down and really worked with them to put together their budget, they could not afford not to increase their rates. So all 19 of our family child care providers increased their rates. And now they're doing wonderful. They're able to go beyond just breaking even. They're able to make a profit in their business. And so that business coaching is just really focusing that provider back to black and white, looking at those metrics through the automation system, sitting down, whether it's 1 hour per week, to say, I'm going to make an appointment with myself. As a business owner, I've invested money, I've invested my time and my energy. How is my business doing? And when they started practicing those principles, it made a drastic difference in the way they were operating. So we formed like a cohort. We had all of these providers come in on a monthly basis, and we offer finance training, budget training. We sat down and they would have to pull certain reports through the automation system. As an enterprise user, I was able to go into their system to see if they collected from Miss Williams, who had been going there for 2 weeks and hadn't paid. So we were able to go in every week and say, okay, you guys, I need you to push the button so that we can bill. And then the next day, I'm on the phone with all my providers and calling, did you collect the money? And I can go right on to see if they were being profitable and successful. And they were. They really were. The other thing is with that group, they started really collaborating together. And it was amazing to see how they were calling on each other and helping each other understand what these metrics mean. So it took away competition. So instead of focusing on a child care center down the street that may have been offering or charging $150, and they were trying to kind of say, well, I need to charge $150. Looking at this automation system, looking at their financials, they had to say, you know what? I can't charge $150. I have to charge $170. And I'm going to let this parent know they will be paying the $20 difference, and I'm going to market my services because I need to charge $170 so that I can break even. So it gives them the tools and the resources that they need in order to make sure that they are not operating their program at a loss. So they really formed a good network. At the end of the program, they were able to graduate, and none of them wanted to leave the program. And so we formed an alumni group, and all of them are a part of the alumni group. But here's the interesting thing that I just absolutely love, that I'm excited because it's that roadmap that we had that Louise talked about, where we saw it come into light. So at the graduation part, we had 3 providers that were working in one area, and they shared an administrative assistant. So they have an administrative assistant that collectively does their back office. So all of their administration, all of their billing, all of their collection goes into one system. And she kind of goes around to each of the centers to make sure that they're doing those things that they need to do. So the owner has time to now spend with teacher engagement. She has time to now order the proper supplies to be in the classroom because she is making a profit and she can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So those are some wonderful things. As we were going through the program, I was getting really excited. I'm competitive by nature, so I wanted to make sure on my watch there was not going to be any provider in our program that failed. It was going to be imperative that all of the providers followed the steps and guidelines that we gave them, that they were all fully automated, that they were running the reports on a regular basis. So again, at the start of the program, when we were working with providers, the bad debt was humongous. So on an average, the bad debt was $52,000 per program. And a lot of times they just kind of hid the account, didn't worry about it, never collected the fees, allowed parents to come week after week after week and not collect. Why? Because we're so compassionate and we empathize and we hear the stories that are going on with our families, and we don't want to disappoint them, right? We want to make them feel like we're their safe haven, and our hearts go out to the children. But what we're failing to realize is when we're not collecting those fees on time, our business, our investment are suffering. So it's important for us to turn that key around and not just say to our providers, you're a child care provider. It was important for them to know you are a business owner. You're a business owner, so you have to protect your investment. You're a business owner who provides high quality care for children. So as we were going along the program each month and monitoring it, they were getting excited because they would see like, oh my God, my debt is going down. Some of the programs were able to send it to a collection agency. Some programs had to write off bad debt. And a lot of our programs actually was able to receive funds back. You know why? Because as business coaches, we were there with them. We got on the phone and we said, okay, Ms. Williams, what kind of payment plan can we set up? And we know little Johnny wants to come to school on Monday, but we gotta have these fees in order for us to properly care for your child. And when you're not collecting fees, your payroll is not changing, your utilities not changing, your food cost is not changing. So we had to convince and show providers, how are you paying for this? So when we did it that way, and again, we showed them in black and white, at the end of the program, the bad debt was about $877 per program. And like I said, that was an average. Most programs that were in this cohort group, 0. They have no bad debt. They collect their fees on time. Their enrollment in those classrooms are full. So, yay! We were just super excited. So one of the other things that was great about this is providers now had a system in place to like flag problems and address them before the debt accumulates. So I was like, well, we're not going back. So if we have already cleared the debt, we had to coach them and make sure that their messaging was clear, that whatever they provided in their family handbook, that the director, that the owner, that the administrative person was really being kind and firm, but making sure that they were telling the parent, unfortunately, unless we have full payment, we will not be able to offer services this week. And okay, I'll be honest, they were very nervous to do it at first because a culture had developed. And this is what they were doing for so long. But once they started talking and having those conversations, whether it was in person and on the phone, and the parents was like, okay, they realized that all the parents paid. And out of all 40 programs, it was one parent due to enforcement of the policy that chose to remove their child. One out of all 40 programs. So I want to emphasize to you, enforce your own policies. Whatever you have in place, enforce it. Now don't go tomorrow and be like, okay, I have to have my money, but just start enforcing with new parents that policy and immediately put that plan in place to collect those fees so that you can have a 0 bad debt. One of the other things that was flagged was, like I said, the discounts, where you want to see, is it worth you giving discounts? You don't want to ever, ever, ever sell your program short. You all are doing amazing. You're providing outstanding, high quality care. Folks need to pay for that service. We pay for everything else, right? So don't devalue what you are doing. You have to pay your teachers their salary. You have to provide certain meals and different things for your program, and we want you to be successful. So that's what we wanted to make sure. So on average, again, by looking at data, by reviewing and having that appointment with the business owner with themselves, they were able to immediately grow their enrollment. And on an average, all of the programs grew their enrollment by 34%. And it's just an amazing feeling because a lot of providers have been in business for 20 years, 10 years, 15 years. And they focus so much on providing high quality care that they really, it's like what we do. We're so busy in life and we stop and we realize, man, I haven't taken care of myself. I didn't go get my hair done. I didn't go, go treat myself. And the business owners were not treating and investing in their business. And when they stopped and started investing back in their business and looking at it, they started being business owners, business operators. So the revenue grew. When they started having that enrollment, when they increased their rates, revenue increased by 24%. And so now you had providers who didn't pay themselves. They're able to pay themselves and take a salary. One of the most important things for providers in this program, I knew no one had a retirement fund set up. Not one program out of the 41 programs that we work with. And so part of the program was you have to have a retirement fund. You have to pay yourself. And what is the strategy? How long are you going to be in this business? So when you want to exit out, and whether that's selling, You want to be able to make sure that you're set up for success after you own a child care program. And so whether that's selling it to someone or just maintaining, the retirement piece was important. And so all of our providers have a retirement plan in place. 2 or more of the providers even doubled and tripled their revenue. So we were just so excited about our preliminary results. We have another group that's forming, and I'm even more excited about that one because we've kind of gone through the learning curve, and we're looking and depicting that roadmap that Louise outlined and say, we're going to do it even better than we did with this group. Next slide. So here we just have like a comment that our providers have stated. QCC helped me gain control and understand my business and how to take it to the next level. And again, we ignited something within them, that passion that they had about taking care of children. That's why they went in business. But we wanted to shift that passion and say, that's great. But how can we take care of the business on a financial side so that those 2 things mingle together and that you really can be supportive, successful? So we're here, right? We're facing this coronavirus pandemic and it looks bleak and no one knew what was gonna happen. So out of the 40 child care providers that we were working with. It's so wonderful here in Atlanta and Quality Care for Children. A lot of the organizations around us called in to our CEO and was like, hey, how can I help? And with our business training program, we have financial people that was working, and I'm like, okay, what can we do? We have so many providers that would like to apply for the PPP, the payroll protection plan. We had providers that needed to apply for the EIDL, the economic injury disaster loan. We had providers that was gonna need to borrow money. How was we gonna do that? So with our volunteers, they all came aboard and took a training, and we were able to help our volunteers, 90%, apply and get additional funding as they're going through COVID-19. And 32 of the programs, which was 89%, received loan and grant awards. On our Facebook page, and I posted one today, we post every single grant that came across our way or came across our desk. We wanted to make sure that our providers knew about those programs and were able to immediately apply. And I can tell you the difference is when you have automation systems, when you are looking at your data, all of our providers were able to turn around and produce that information instantly, where other providers who were not a part of our program or just wasn't paying attention to the things that we were offering, didn't have those things together. Not that they didn't get grant, a lot of them didn't, but it was harder for them to get approved for funding because they didn't have the necessary documentation in order to receive funding. Collectively, our programs that apply for these grants and loans received $1.3 million in federal support. So I was just so excited. I'm so excited, not because, you know, this is just business support services and I'm over the program. It's because this is what we want. We want our providers, we want this industry to win. And so it's just remarkable to see that light switch come on where they are all about business and having this business coaching and this business training support where you're not just going to a training class one day and you forget. It's like, no, I'm calling you next week. I'm calling you the week after that. Did you do your homework? Did you do your work so that you can get these amazing results? And one of the providers came out and said, the assistance from Quality Care for Children allowed me to be able to sustain through the pandemic and pay my bills and staff thus far. So although we had providers graduate out of the program, we are readily available at Quality Care for Children to just make sure that they continue to strive to do better. It's not just, okay, we're gonna forget you and you're done. No, we're constantly getting calls, and we want to be readily available with our providers on the forefront to help them. And it was amazing to be able to, especially during this crisis, to stand along with the provider and say, okay, this is the game plan. Let's break this down. What can you do? And to have these providers have the monies that they needed in order to pay their bills and their staff was amazing. And you know, a lot of providers are struggling right now, and I can constantly say, if you don't have your financials in order, now is a great time to do it. So don't feel depleted, don't give up. You have the all with all, just like you've ran high quality programs to make it happen. And we have all these business coaches and all of our agencies out there to work with you on your business training. And then finally, it's so much more that we offer with Quality Care for Children, but one of our biggest access to our providers is our Provider Resource Hub. And that's an amazing platform where our providers can go on this platform, whether you're a child care center owner or you're a family child care provider owner, and you can go on this platform and get all the tools and resources that you need at your fingertips to be able to run a successful program. So we also have done childcarejobsgeorgia.org. And it's basically a free service for providers to get on this platform, post their jobs, and you can view it. And the good thing about this, the job board goes out to 8 major job sites: Indeed, LinkedIn, Jara, all of them. And you don't even have to pay for this. It's free. And so I'm always emphasizing to providers, are you on the Provider Resource Hub? Get on the Provider Resource Hub. And I'm like, I need teachers. Get on the Provider Resource Hub and post these jobs. And what we found when I'm looking at data, because I look at data, I love to look at data, and I'm trying to see the trend, just like the coronavirus. We want it to go down. I'm looking at the trends to see who's on this platform, what pages are they looking at? And a lot of the templates, they're going to the administrative and resource template page. We have discounted goods and supplies that you can order from Kaplan and Lakeshore and Paychecks and get a major discount. And we have the support of our quality rated. Here in Georgia, we do a quality rated system, 1, 2, 3. You can find all those resources on our Provider Resource Hub. The job board, we were programs that post on the job board were able to hire between 15 to 20% of all their jobs offerings on this website. So again, just absolutely amazing. And I guess I just want to say, to bring back that roadmap, sometimes in childcare, we didn't have a roadmap. So it's amazing, Louise and all the work that she's doing with Opportunities Exchange and so many other organizations. Now we have a plan. And I'm like, I'm gonna win. Like when you're playing Monopoly, I'm trying to win. I'm not trying to, not pass go and pay the $200, or if you pass go, you get the $200. I'm trying to get all that money. And I'm trying to make sure that my providers have that money in their pockets. So follow the roadmap. Automate your program. You can do it. Any program that you want to do. Again, we chose to go with ProCare because it was easier for our providers, but all of them will do the same thing. It will make your life so much better as a business owner. It will help the agencies that are coming in to help you. When you automate, it also helps you with compliance, because you have to put the children's information in, you have to put the parents' information in, and that's some of the same compliant issues that you will have. One of the things I want to end by saying this, we wanted to do is going through the coronavirus, I'm always crucial of the bottom line. So we do have providers who are on the food program. We have providers who have an accountant, right? So just think about it. You're paying your accountant $300 to $400 a month. And I'm always asking providers, what is your profit and loss? What's your financial health? Well, I don't know. I have to speak to my accountant. No, you don't have to speak to your accountant. You can have this information at your fingertips through automation. If you choose to use an accountant, great. But you should be meeting with your accountant on a regular basis to know this information. And then going through a coronavirus, this is how you save money. So we purchased the automation system for all of our providers. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a subscription based, and sometimes you have to do subscription. So like Louise said, budget that in if that's the route you're gonna go, no problem, but make that part of your budget so that you can meet that goal for the following year. But I had several conversations with providers as they were going through the pandemic to say, you know what, for the next 3 months, you don't need your accountant. All of this information is in your automation system. You know what? If you need to get off the food program, not suggesting that you should, but if you need to, you can save a couple of more $100 because all that information is in the automation system. So the takeaway from today is to be smart about your business. Invest in your business. Take time to have an appointment with yourself and know your bottom line. What is your business financial health? And you can do it because we've done it and we're excited to share all of these results with you. We look forward to our next group, and we want all of the child care programs across the world to make a difference and to be successful.
Thank you, Monique, for sharing the amazing work that's going on in your program, and Louise for what you shared earlier as well. We'll shift now into some time for question and answers. If you have a question and you haven't posted in chat, now is a good time to enter that in. I'll share a couple of questions that have already come in chat to get reflections from Monique and Louise, and others in the group can feel free to use chat to weigh in as well. So we had one question about, is there a best practice rule for providers to give notice to families about increasing their fees?
Yeah, so I just feel like if you have done your research and you know that you want to increase your fees, the best practice is usually 30-day notice. And you just send out your notice and you just say effective this day is when the rate increase will take place, and that's it. Some providers have done it even within a 2-week notice, but standard is 30-day notice.
We had another question about kind of a comment and a question. I've found that there are many administrators who are hesitant or resistant to using any management software systems. How have you helped providers get over that initial hurdle?
Great question. What we did was group training. That was a part of our initiative that we had all providers together learning, initially learning the same thing. So they would go into the system and learn together. And then I would come behind as an enterpriser launcher to be sure that they were using the system correctly. So I guess the best practice would be, it's gonna take time, but you have to make available the time for your administrators or yourself to put in the work so that you can yield the results that you need.
I just want to jump in and underscore what Monique said and add a little bit. We clearly have found that there's probably the biggest hurdle is that first piece, getting your data loaded in the system and starting to use it. We found that there are many providers that have the software and it just sits on their desk, or they've used a few modules, but not all. And so what we've learned is that one of the most important roles that coaches can play is exactly what Monique is saying, sort of helping them to break it down into short pieces and make appointments. Okay, by this date, we want you to do this, and we're gonna check in. And by this date, we want you, and we have another coach, I love her. We've been doing some work out in Phoenix, Arizona, and And our coach out there, she's so funny. She would say to us, when I meet with them, if they haven't done what they were supposed to do, I say to them, we're just going to stop right now because you're not ready for me. I'm going to give you another week to do your homework and then I'll come back. But she says, you know, you've got to like really do that kind but firm all along the way. Once they get over that hurdle, once the data is loaded in the system, they start generating reports, then they get excited. And then it's much easier because once you get it set up, you can also send alerts to families. So from day one, families load their information into the system. It's just done electronically. So it's really a cultural change inside the center. Right. And it's a process of just coaching them through that cultural change.
Thanks. And I think that feeds into another question that came up about if cohorts or communities of practice are helpful to help people feel more comfortable about trying these systems and being successful.
Yeah, for us it was. They came in, so we made it a program that they were participating in this program, and it was going to be a year-long program. Our second group, we kind of staggered their groups. So it was 8 and then 13. We staggered their groups, but they had to have a commitment, a buy-in at the beginning that they would have to attend the meetings. And I did a lot of one-on-ones with our providers. And so, yeah, the cohorts definitely work because you had providers calling each other. Oh my God, we have our meeting coming up and they're going to ask me this. How did you do it? And so we shared lots of information. And not only for the providers, it's a lot of work for the coaches too, because we had to be committed just as much as they were committed. They need help. They need guidance getting set up. And so we wanted to be that bridge and make sure that they were successful.
And I just want to say, folks that are doing this around the country, same thing, underscore what Monique said. Cohorts are really helpful in terms of that peer support. Folks are also learning, especially post-COVID, that they can do a lot with Zoom, that it's not like you necessarily have to be there physically, that you can totally coach people electronically, which has made a big difference in our ability to scale this.
We had one more question that came up, and Monique, I think you mentioned providers had questions about their accountant and the accountant's role. So someone's curious about how often one should meet with an accountant.
Right.
Anything else you can add about working with an accountant?
Yeah, absolutely. You should get monthly financial statements. Now, meeting with your accountant on normally, I would suggest quarterly. If you're really good about reading your financial statements on a monthly basis, then it's okay for you to meet, and I would say at least an hour to sit down with your accountant on a quarterly basis. However, this is a shift. This is new. And so if you haven't been doing that, I highly recommend you meet with your accountant on a monthly basis for 6 months so that you start learning the terminology that they're using and you understand what that means, because your net profit is not the same as what you have in the bank, your cash flow. So those are two different things. And it's important for you to understand, because you can get, I don't have this and you're saying I made a profit. So you need to understand that terminology in order to really know your financial health. So quarterly, if you're doing, you kind of have a grasp on that, making sure that you have your monthly reports. But if you haven't done any of that, monthly.
And I noticed one comment related to a question that was already addressed, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name, suggesting that it's a good idea to check with your contract holders and regulating bodies to see if there might be policies in place about notice required to provide to families for an increase in fees. I don't see any other questions coming in just now. I think we can move ahead, and we have a few more parting thoughts, bits of information to share.
Okay, so just a couple of thoughts that we want to look through. I was hung up by a question that came in, so let me just actually pause because I was reading it. Somebody had asked about some of the phone-based technology for family child care. So let me just say that if we have time on this webinar, we can talk to you more about that. Otherwise, feel totally free to reach out to us, and our contact information will be at the end. So I know that equity is a really important issue for Build. And so I just want to really underscore that we believe that automation and data are key in terms of our work toward equity. That strong fiscal management makes a very big difference in terms of financial success. That it's interesting. I actually did some taking a look at what do folks say in the broader field, not just outside of early care and education, but just in terms of small businesses in general. And 85% surveys of minority business owners, 85% say technology is key to success. And the truth of the matter is only a fraction of early care and education businesses are automated. We don't have hard data about this, but we estimated it's only about 20 to 30%. So we really need to get this field automated. Smartphone use. So that's another thing. People say, oh my gosh, we can't be automated because we don't have computers. We can't be automated because we don't have broadband. More and more, these tools are able to be used with smartphones. And there's really interesting software for family childcare providers that's driven off smartphones. And then also the whole issue about data, empowering folks. Monique talked about that before. So those of you who know me know that I have been on this train for years. And that is that QRIS, we have lost our way. We have created way too many standards. And many of those standards are essentially paper tigers, as you see flying around this room. I feel really strongly that it is time for us to have fewer standards. And I want to leave you with this quote from John Doerr, who is the author of a book called Measure What Matters. And when he talks about skilled leadership, he says, it's the capacity to select from the many activities of seemingly comparable significance, the one or two that provide leverage well beyond the others. So I would challenge all of you that lead QRIS to pause and think that if you had to pare your QRIS down to 3 things, what are the 3 things that matter most? Because we are killing programs with a lot of detailed paperwork that, quite frankly, is robbing time from children and families. This last slide is going to give you contact information. So that's our website. There's tons of stuff there. I also highlighted, these are live links when you get the website, of just papers that are related to what you heard today and that might be helpful to you. Monique talked about roadmaps, that a business training and automation document, that making business real, those are roadmaps. Staffing Family Childcare Networks talks about family child care. So there's lots of different tools and resources, and do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions that were not answered on this webinar. Back to you, Jennifer.
So I hope that you have enjoyed this session. I learned something new every time I get to hear Louise present, and how wonderful, Monique, to learn and hear about the success in your program. For ECTAC, the Emergency Child Care and Technical Assistance Center at Child Care Aware of America, today's session is just part of the beginning of the work that we're doing on this issue. And our website was shared earlier in the chat, so you can find it there. So be sure to visit it frequently. It's childcareaware.org. For the latest information, and you can see some of what you can look forward to over the course of this year here on the slide. As we wrap up, I wanted to call your attention to a specific set of webinars that you can find on our website. We just had one on Thursday, Why Business Automation Matters to ECE Providers. If you missed it, you can listen to the recording. I think it's available, it went live earlier today on our website, so you can check that one out. But we have 2 more scheduled in August. So on August 6th, we'll be doing Why ECE Provider Automation Matters to Intermediaries. And then August 20th, about combining business automation with business training and how that gets to the high impact kinds of changes that you heard Monique and Louise describe in this session. And those webinars are presented as part of the partnership between ECTAC and Opportunities Exchange.
Great. Before everyone signs off, we encourage you to give us some feedback on today's webinar, and I can see that a number of you have been doing that already. Some poll questions are popping up on your screen. Let us know in the chat box what was useful, significant, or new, and how we might improve the sessions. Also, give us any final questions, and we'll reach out back around to you. But I'd really like to thank our session leaders today for this interesting, informative, and enthusiastic opportunity. We appreciated the contributions from participants in the chat box, and thank you all so much for attending and sharing your ideas, questions, and thoughts with us. Continue to work on the poll, add into the chat box, and we look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Everything will be posted on the website, so you can go back and refresh yourself or nab some of these resources. Louise, I did just have one question for you as people are writing their notes in the chat box or doing the evaluation. Did you want to come back at all to that question about the phone supports and stuff that was kind of hanging out there?
Yeah, I actually posted that in the chat box. But if you're interested, there are several national vendors. Wonder School is one of them. WeCare is another. These are new technologists that have developed what I would essentially call the Airbnb of family childcare. If you go to their website, Wonder School is probably the most transparent. Wonderschool.com. Literally, you can drive you can run the business off a cell phone if you're a family childcare provider. And one of the other interesting things about Wonder School, by the way, is they have recently, in the last couple of months, launched an enterprise version of their software, which allows you to partner with an organization. So you can actually partner with Wonder School and white label the product. And actually, just like Monique is helping people with ProCare, you can work in partnership with Wonder School to support family childcare providers using this phone-based technology. So it's actually a really interesting opportunity.
Well, that's just really fascinating. And so many people are inventing right now and innovating right now. And I think we're just going to see things really take off here around business acumen and ways to help providers improve in this area. And we thank you for getting us started in the conversation. And thanks to everyone who joined in today. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks.